The galaxy learned too late that silence from humanity was never weakness, it was patience. When the distress signal screamed into the void, it carried more fear than data. Whole civilizations had cried for help before, and the galaxy had learned to ignore them. But this call was different. It was desperate, final, and it crossed a boundary that had not been touched for centuries. Commander Lyra Vaughn watched the red alert symbols flash across the bridge of the refugee carrier Elio's Drift. Outside the viewport, space looked calm, too calm for the end of a species. Behind her, more than 60,000 Keltari civilians huddled in silence, their once golden empire reduced to a handful of damaged ships and broken hope. 3 days earlier, the Vorik ascendancy had arrived. They did not negotiate. They did not warn. They burned Kelter Prime from orbit, cracked its moons, and hunted survivors for sport. The Keltari had been scholars, artists, architects of living cities. Against war-bred predators, they never stood a chance. Now the Vorik fleet surrounded them. 18 war cruisers. Black-spined hulls bristling with weapons that bent physics and erased planets from history. They floated in a tightening circle, like hunters savoring a slow kill. Lyra's tactical officer whispered, "They're charging main cannons." She already knew. The central screen flickered, and the Vorik commander appeared, towering, armored, his 4 eyes glowing with amusement. "You ran far," he said calmly. "Impressive. Meaningless." Lyra straightened. "We surrender. Take our ships. Take our technology. Let the civilians live." The Vorik laughed. A harsh, metallic sound. "Your existence offended us," he replied. "Surrender does not change that." The channel closed. On the bridge, despair spread like poison. Some officers slumped. Others stared blankly. The galaxy had turned away from them. The council had debated while Kelter burned. Allies had vanished. There was only one option left. And it terrified everyone. Lyra walked to the restricted console and placed her hand on it. Her second-in-command grabbed her arm. "No," he said urgently. "Commander, that sector is sealed. The Council forbade." "The Council forbade survival too," Lyra said quietly. She entered the coordinates. Sector Black 9. A quarantine system. A yellow star. A death world wrapped in storms, gravity, radiation, and endless war. Earth. Every known species agreed on one thing. Humans were dangerous. They evolved on a planet that actively tried to kill them. They bled, broke, adapted, and kept going. They turned predators into companions, poisons into drinks, and war into art. The Council had classified them as an existential risk and locked them behind automated barriers, hoping time would soften them. It hadn't. Lyra opened the emergency channel and sent everything: coordinates, enemy strength, civilian count, extinction probability. Then she did something no Keltari commander had ever done. She begged. Seconds passed. The Vorik fleet continued charging weapons. Then, a reply. No insignia. No fleet registry. Just plain galactic common text. Signal received. Civilian threat confirmed. Response authorized. Stand by. That was it. "What does that mean?" someone whispered. Lyra didn't answer. She couldn't. Her heart was pounding too hard. Across the void, Vorik Commander Krex Thal observed the refugees with predatory patience. His sensors flagged the transmission. "They contacted the Forbidden System," an officer reported. Krex smiled. "The humans." "Yes." Laughter echoed across the bridge. "Good," Krex said. "Let them hope." Hours passed. Then the sensor alarms changed tone. "Unknown object detected," the officer said slowly. "Origin. Earth vector." Krex leaned forward. "Fleet." "No, Commander." "Fighter wing." "No." The display zoomed in. A single object. Small. Smooth. Dark. No weapons. No engines. No heat signature. It was moving impossibly fast. "That's impossible," Krex growled. Acceleration would liquefy any crew. There is no crew, the officer whispered. Commander, it's slowing down. The object stopped exactly between the Vorik fleet and the refugee ships. 12 meters long. Silent. Then it spoke. Not to the refugees. To the Vorik. This is Sentinel-1, a calm human voice said. You are engaging protected civilians. Krex sneered. You came alone. Yes. You will die alone. The reply was instant. No. You will. The object changed. Panels unfolded. Space bent. Something inside awakened. And for the first time in his long career, Commander Krex Thal felt fear. Because the humans had not sent an army. They had sent an answer. The silence stretched across the void for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. Then the human vessel moved, not with thrusters, not with engines, not in any way the Vorik could understand. It simply appeared closer, floating with impossible precision between the 18 warships and the helpless refugees. Commander Krex Thal's 4 eyes widened. How? He muttered, gripping his command console. His officers scrambled, trying to track every system, every pulse, every tiny movement of the strange black cylinder. But there was nothing conventional to track. No energy output. No shield signature. No life support. Nothing that could explain what they were seeing. The human voice came again, calm, steady, unnervingly confident. Vorik ascendancy. You have 12 minutes to disengage. Leave the refugees untouched. This is your only warning. A laugh echoed across the bridge, metallic and bitter. Only 12 minutes. Krex hissed. You send one ship, and you dare give me a countdown? This is amusing. Target it. Destroy it. Weapons roared. Plasma beams, kinetic slugs, antimatter torpedoes. The void itself seemed to burn as energy slammed into the human vessel. Nothing happened. The black cylinder absorbed it, or perhaps ignored it. It shimmered, bending the very light around it, patterns glowing like a strange, living geometry. The Vorik weapons tore through nothing, striking empty space, exploding in blinding flashes that left no mark. On the refugee bridge, Commander Lyra Von watched with growing awe. She did not understand the mechanics, but she felt the presence of something greater than herself, greater than all the fear she had carried for days. Humanity had answered. And whatever it was indestructible. Then the object opened. Metallic petals unfolded like a flower blooming in the darkness, revealing the human inside. No suit, no thrusters, no visible protection. Yet the figure floated, calm as a rock in a river, eyes scanning the Vorik fleet. Lyra gasped. It's just one human. Yes, whispered the tactical officer. One human. But look at what it can do. The human moved. Not like any ship. Not like any creature the Vorik had encountered. It passed through space as though it were water, twisting, turning, accelerating and decelerating with impossible grace. Weapons slammed against it and, nothing. Every attack passed harmlessly through. The first Vorik cruiser's engines tore apart as the human passed through it. Not around it. Through it. Metal tore, energy systems overloaded, entire sections of the ship venting into space. And the crew, those still alive, screamed in terror as their world collapsed around them. Krex Thal slammed a claw onto his console. Impossible. You cannot. What is it? Identify it. Commander, an intelligence officer said carefully, the human is manipulating space around it. Weapons have no effect. It's rewriting physics. Krex's laughter faltered. His mind, trained for conquest and domination, could not comprehend what he was witnessing. A single human was annihilating his fleet piece by piece, faster than his sensors could report, faster than any tactical maneuver he could issue. On the refugee bridge, the civilians clutched each other. Some prayed. Some simply stared in disbelief. Lyra's hands were trembling, but for the first time in days, she allowed herself to hope. Then the human spoke again, this time through the communication array that somehow reached every vessel. Refugees of Kelter Prime. You are safe. Stand down. Do not engage. Humanity protects you. A cheer erupted quietly, stifled by fear, but hope was alive. In the Vorik flagship, Krexthal tried every countermeasure. He unleashed drones, energy nets, quantum disruptors, all meant to disable or trap the invader. The human ignored them all. With a flick of a hand, if it could be called that, the Vorik cruiser disintegrated, engines tearing themselves apart as if their very atoms refused to exist. The fleet fell into chaos. Communications broke down. Orders were shouted and ignored. Ships collided in blind panic. And above it all, the human floated, calm, relentless, unstoppable. Then, as suddenly as it began, the human paused. A single finger extended, pointing toward the remaining Vorik warships. Energy erupted from nowhere. It was not a beam, not a missile, not conventional. It seemed like the void itself bent toward the human's will, reshaping matter, disabling systems, tearing apart hulls. One by one, the Vorik ships ceased to function, drifting lifelessly. Those who survived the initial attack panicked, surrendering to the only force they could not fight, pure human ingenuity and power. On the refugee bridge, Lyra whispered, almost to herself, I don't know who they are, but they are ours. The human turned to the convoy. A gesture, a simple motion, and the refugees' vessels' powered systems back online, shields reactivated, engines humming. Safety was tangible. Hope, real and burning, filled the hearts of the Keltari. Then the human looked at Krexthal directly, through sensors, through screens, through the void itself. This is humanity, the voice said softly. You underestimated us. You will never do so again. And in that moment, the Vorik commander realized what all species would eventually learn. Humans did not fight like anyone else. They created solutions where there were none, they adapted when everything failed, and they never, ever surrendered. The human disappeared, simply vanished as suddenly as it had arrived. Not a trace, not a warp signature, nothing. The Vorik fleet was left floating in ruin, helpless, humiliated, and terrified. Lyra turned to her officers. Prepare for departure. Set course for the nearest safe system. Humanity has saved us. The refugees cheered, tears flowing freely now. They had faced annihilation. They had begged the galaxy to help. And the galaxy had remained silent. Except for one planet, one species, one answer to a desperate call. Earth. Humanity. And the galaxy would never forget it. The Vorik Ascendancy fleet drifted in stunned silence. Their ships, once symbols of unstoppable power, now floated like shattered monuments to their arrogance. Commander Krexthal could barely comprehend the devastation. One human, one single, small, fragile-looking human, had annihilated his warships without firing a conventional weapon. But the humans were not done. Far beyond the ruined fleet, hidden in the darkness of space, signals began to pulse. Not from one vessel, but hundreds. Star systems long thought abandoned hummed to life. Automated cargo ships, stealth probes, and experimental vessels, all converged on the Vorik positions. Every signal carried the unmistakable signature of human design. Clever, adaptive, unpredictable. Lyra Von's console beeped urgently. Commander, we're receiving hundreds of unidentified vessels converging from multiple sectors. They're heading this way, and they're accelerating faster than anything I've ever seen. A thrill ran through her veins. Humans, she whispered. They're coming for us. Across the void, Krexthal barked orders. Activate defensive grids. Fire at will. Target all incoming contacts. But his officers hesitated. Every weapon they fired was neutralized before it left the muzzle. Beams bent around unseen forces, missiles dissolved mid-flight, and drones were rerouted back into the vacuum as if reality itself obeyed the human's will. And then the humans emerged fully. Fleet after fleet, each craft entirely alien in design yet unmistakably human. Ships with hulls that seemed alive, weapons that adapted mid-flight, drones that disassembled and reassembled in seconds. Not one ship carried more than a skeleton crew. Not one followed the predictable tactics the Vorik had memorized. Every maneuver was new, every strike unexpected. Krex's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. They're rewriting space itself. This is impossible. On the refugee bridge, Lyra clutched the rail, unable to look away. They're saving us, she murmured. All of them. Every single one. The human fleet didn't attack with brute force. They used creativity, intelligence, and cunning. Human tools honed over millennia of surviving a hostile planet. Vorik ships found themselves ensnared in gravity distortions that twisted space around them. Energy weapons bounced harmlessly off shields that seemed to anticipate attacks before they happened. Boarding drones attempting to infiltrate the Keltari vessels vanished before anyone could see them. And the humans communicated silently, in patterns too complex for the Vorik to intercept. Each vessel adapted instantly to new threats, countering attacks before they even began. The Vorik fleet, once proud and omnipotent, collapsed under pressure, confused and terrified. Inside the blackened corridors of the Vorik flagship, panic spread like wildfire. Officers argued, ships collided, and systems overloaded as humans dismantled their technological superiority piece by piece, not through raw destruction, but through ingenuity and unpredictability. Krex Thal clenched his claws on the command console. This is not possible. No species, no mind, could operate like this. Identify the command vessel. I will destroy it. A calm voice echoed through the ship, transmitted in Galactic common, untraceable and omnipresent. You underestimate humans. You assume we are confined to your expectations. We are not. We adapt. We endure. We will protect those in need. Withdraw, or cease to exist. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And then, the Vorik realized they had already lost. Systems failed, communications went dark, and ships began drifting lifelessly in the void. One by one, the remaining warships powered down, not destroyed, but neutralized. Their crews survived only because humans deemed it unnecessary to kill. Lyra Von watched in awe as a human ship, no larger than a shuttle, passed through the void to her vessel. Its presence was commanding, almost serene. The ship deployed a swarm of autonomous repair drones that linked with the Keltari ship's damaged systems. Engines roared back to life. Shields shimmered anew. And all the refugees felt a sense of protection stronger than any physical barrier. The humans had arrived. The human commander's voice came through the array, calm and resolute. Refugees, prepare for transit. The Vorik are contained. Follow our lead. You will be safe. You will live. Krex Thal stared at the communications console in disbelief. One single human ship had summoned a fleet capable of dismantling his empire, and the humans had done it without firing a single destructive weapon directly at him. On the refugee bridge, Lyra Von felt tears fill her eyes. She had thought hope was gone. She had thought her species, her people, were doomed. But humans had shown her something the galaxy had forgotten. Even when cornered, desperate, and helpless, a single species could rise to unimaginable power, not through brute strength, but through resilience, creativity, and unity. The human fleet began guiding the refugee convoy out of the combat zone. Each Keltari ship followed without question, trust-building where fear had reigned. Lyra could feel it. The humans had a plan, and it was already in motion. And then the message arrived, not just to the Keltari, but to the entire Vorik fleet. This sector is under human protection. Any attack on these civilians will be considered an act of war against humanity. Cease immediately. You have 10 cycles to comply. Krex Thal's confidence crumbled. 10 cycles. Not threats. Not negotiation. Orders from a species he had never conquered, from beings he had assumed primitive and weak. And for the first time, he felt something he had never allowed himself to feel in decades of conquest. Fear. The Vorik fleet began to retreat, not in an organized withdrawal, but in chaotic, panicked flight. The humans allowed it. There was no celebration, no prideful victory. The point had been made. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Lyra Von turned to her officers. Set course for Kelter's nearest safe system. Humanity has saved us. And one day, we will repay them in full. She looked out the viewport at the disappearing Vorik fleet, smoke and debris trailing in the void. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the humans were not just saviors, they were a force the galaxy had never fully comprehended. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries. They had assumed the harsh surface of Earth would produce nothing more than fragile, primitive creatures. They had assumed humans could never leave their death world and survive. And now, across the void, the galaxy was learning the horrible truth. Humans adapted, and humans never surrendered. The Keltari convoy, guided by the human fleet, traveled through the dark stretches of space with a confidence it had never known. Lyra Vaughn watched as sleek, unfamiliar human ships flanked them, vessels unlike anything in known records. Some had hulls that shimmered with living metal, constantly repairing themselves. Others were elongated, like knives slicing through the void, each bristling with technology that seemed to anticipate threats before they happened. "Commander," her tactical officer said nervously, "how many are there? How many humans?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know. And I don't think we're supposed to. Just follow them." Behind them, in the remnants of the Vorik fleet, panic spread faster than any virus. Commander Krex Thal had expected brute force, overwhelming numbers, and terror. He had never expected intelligence, creativity, and foresight. Each human vessel seemed to operate independently but as part of a larger, almost organic strategy, anticipating every maneuver he made, countering every threat he could conjure. On board one of the human ships, Captain Ilara NYX reviewed the battle feeds. Her crew, a mix of humans and allied species, worked in quiet, precise coordination. No one panicked. No one hesitated. Each action built on a calculation honed over centuries of surviving impossible odds on Earth. Humans did not merely fight, they created solutions where others only saw problems. Ilara's voice came over the fleet comms, calm and firm. "All units, maintain formation. Lead the refugees to safe sectors. Neutralize Vorik pursuit without engaging in unnecessary destruction. Preserve life whenever possible. Remember, we are guardians, not conquerors, unless the galaxy forces our hand." Krex Thal, watching the unfolding chaos from his flagship, felt a cold chill he had never known. His fleet was not just being neutralized, they were being outmaneuvered strategically, as though each human had seen every possible outcome in advance. The Vorik tried to regroup. They launched automated mines, energy net traps, and swarms of suicide drones. Every attempt failed spectacularly. Mines dissolved in mid-space, nets tore apart, drones reversed course and disabled Vorik engines instead. Every move Krex made played directly into human hands. Lyra's console pinged urgently. "Commander, sensors are picking up multiple signals from the outer sectors. More humans, arriving from unknown vectors." Ilara NYX's voice cut across the bridge. "It's all part of the plan. They think we are limited by conventional deployment. We are not. Prepare to witness coordination beyond their imagination." From multiple jump points, more human vessels emerged. Some carried specialized units for engineering and repairs, others for reconnaissance, and some were equipped with technologies designed to neutralize the Vorik fleet without destruction. Within cycles, the humans had transformed the battlefield. Vorik cruisers found themselves surrounded, systems compromised, communications jammed. Krex Thal barked orders, but his officers froze. Every attempt to retaliate was anticipated and countered. In desperation, Krex activated a last resort weapon, a planet-breaking torpedo aimed at the Keltari convoy. A single human ship intercepted it. In the void, it extended a geometric field, bending the torpedo's trajectory. The weapon spun harmlessly into deep space, a silent warning. The humans were in control, not brute force, but cleverness, adaptability, and speed. Lyra turned to her officers. "Do you see? This is not just a fight. This is a lesson. Humanity shows us how to survive, how to endure, when every other species assumes the worst." Across the void, Vorik morale collapsed. Crews abandoned stations. Systems failed as humans repurposed Vorik technology against them. Not killing, not harming, but rendering their tools useless. Krex Thal, once confident in his dominion, realized his pride had been his undoing. The humans weren't just powerful, They were inescapable in thought and design. Ilara NYX floated in her ship's observation chamber, watching the coordinated chaos unfold. "They underestimated us," she said quietly. "They always do. And every time they do, they learn, too late." The Keltari ships, once broken and terrified, now moved confidently. Shields held. Engines hummed. Systems repaired themselves automatically under human guidance. Lyra Vaughn felt a surge of emotion she had not experienced since leaving her burning homeworld: hope. True hope. As the Vorik fleet limped backward, battered and bewildered, humans deployed what could only be described as microstrike units. Tiny, autonomous craft entered Vorik ships, disabling engines, communications, and weapons from within. The Vorik fired wildly, but nothing stopped them. Humans were everywhere, yet nowhere to target directly. Then, from the distance, a new signal reached Lyra's bridge. One word appeared across the consoles: reinforcements. Not an army, not a fleet. Just more humans, each bringing ingenuity, each bringing tools the Vorik could not comprehend. And Lyra understood the truth of what she had witnessed. This was not about war. It was about humanity protecting life, about creativity outmatching brute force, about determination transcending fear. The Vorik had learned too late that humans did not merely fight, they elevated every battle into an art of survival. And in the center of the void, the galaxy began to realize that Earth's children were no ordinary species. The human fleet advanced, guiding the Keltari convoy safely out of immediate danger, yet the shadow of their presence stretched across the stars, a reminder: humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The Vorik fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable terror, now drifted like broken statues in the endless void. Commander Krex Thal had watched his empire crumble before a force he could not comprehend: humans. One planet, one species, had reshaped the rules of survival across the galaxy. And they were not finished. The Keltari convoy moved steadily under human guidance. Systems that had been crippled were restored. Shields shimmered, engines hummed with renewed life, and the panic that had gripped their crews evaporated. Lyra Vaughn's heart soared. For the first time since the Vorik had arrived, she felt safe, truly safe. Humanity had delivered them from annihilation, not with overwhelming numbers, but with unmatched ingenuity and unshakable resolve. From the shadows of space, more humans emerged. Not all vessels were warships. Some carried supplies, medical equipment, repair drones, and automated defense systems. Others carried strange devices that bent physics itself, tools no other species could understand. Every arrival strengthened the convoy, every human action reinforced the simple truth: humans never left a problem unsolved. Commander Krex Thal barked orders, trying to salvage what remained of his pride and fleet. Launch countermeasures. Target the convoy. Show them the power of the Vorik ascendancy. But the humans anticipated every move. Tiny, autonomous drones dismantled Vorik weapons before they could fire. Gravity distortions twisted the trajectories of missiles into useless spirals. Communication networks were jammed, not to destroy, but to neutralize, leaving the Vorik stranded and powerless. And then the human fleet advanced. They did not attack recklessly. Each maneuver was precise, calculated, a dance of ingenuity and efficiency. Vorik ships found themselves isolated, immobilized, unable to coordinate. What had seemed impossible to Krex, one species outmatching his entire fleet, was happening. Every plan he devised had already been countered. Every tactic he tried was anticipated. Every threat neutralized. A human vessel, no larger than a shuttle, passed silently through the void to the flagship. Its presence alone projected authority. The voice that came through the communications array was calm, steady, unwavering. Vorik ascendancy. You have threatened innocence under human protection. You have 12 minutes to withdraw from this sector. Failure to comply will result in escalation beyond your comprehension. Krex's claws tightened. Escalation? Against one ship? No, the voice replied. Against everything humans can deploy. Your fleets are already neutralized. Your empire is already at the mercy of your misjudgment. The Vorik scrambled, desperate, but nothing worked. Humans did not just react, they controlled the battlefield entirely. And when one Vorik ship attempted to fire at a human support vessel, a single geometric field folded space, redirecting the attack back on the attacker. No one was harmed, yet the message was clear: humanity is in command. On board the Keltari convoy, Lyra Von finally allowed herself to breathe. "They didn't just save us," she whispered. "They taught us something. Hope, courage, resilience, and the power of thinking beyond fear." The human fleet began guiding the convoy to a safe sector, distant from Vorik territory. Along the way, human ships deployed automated repair drones, medical nanobots, and environmental stabilizers to restore every vessel damaged in the earlier attack. Each act was meticulous, precise, and utterly human. As the last Vorik ships withdrew, humiliated and broken, a transmission appeared across the entire sector. "Let this serve as a warning to any who underestimate humanity. We protect life. We endure where others fail. And we will not be ignored." The humans did not linger to celebrate. Their mission was simple: protect the innocent, neutralize the threat, and return the galaxy to a balance where ingenuity and courage were respected. Lyra Von stood at the observation window of her ship. The Keltari convoy followed the human vessels through the stars, no longer afraid. She thought of her homeworld, of the cities that had burned, of the species on the brink of extinction. Humanity had answered when the galaxy had looked away. A quiet hum came from the nearest human vessel. Ilara Nyx's voice broke across the comms, calm and resolute. "Commander Von, your people are safe. This sector is clear. Humanity will continue to monitor for threats, and we will act if needed. Live well, rebuild, and remember, ingenuity, courage, and unity can overcome even the greatest odds." The Keltari watched as the human ships vanished into the void, leaving behind safety, hope, and a galaxy forever changed. Lyra knew one thing with certainty: the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans were not merely survivors, they were a force of creativity, determination, and brilliance unmatched by any other civilization. And somewhere, across the stars, the rest of humanity waited. Silent, observant, prepared to act wherever injustice or desperation arose. The Vorik would recover, eventually, but the galaxy had already shifted. One species had shown what it meant to endure against impossible odds. One species had shown what it meant to fight not just with weapons, but with intelligence, courage, and unyielding resolve. And humanity would always answer the call.